Let's talk about Kashmir, a beautiful mountainous region that's also one of the most militarized places in the world. Because this land is disputed. It's claimed by India and Pakistan. And every so often, things flare up. Around 15 million people live in Kashmir, and they're caught in the middle of it all.
It's not easy for us. It's not easy for us Kashmiris.
They say when two elephants fight, it's the grass that is trampled upon. We are the grass.
Some people are scared to talk openly about what's going on.
You always feel like somebody is watching.
So what's behind that fear? And why is Kashmir such a hot spot? Kashmir is all carved up. This is the part that India controls. It's got the biggest population. This is the part that Pakistan controls. This bit is controlled by China, although barely anyone lives there. The main territorial dispute is really between India and Pakistan. India claims all of Kashmir. Pakistan claims most of it, but does recognize China's claim. Now, when people talk about conflict in Kashmir, it can actually mean different things. Think about it in three layers. There's the big rivalry between India and Pakistan. There are also tensions in India-administered Kashmir between people there and the Indian government. And there are divisions among Kashmiris themselves when it comes to questions of identity and belonging, i.e. whether they want to be part of Pakistan, India, or independent. Let's start with that first one, because these two nuclear powers have basically been fighting over this region since 1947. That's when British India was split into two independent countries, Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. Kashmir was a semi-autonomous state within British India, and its population was, and still is, majority Muslim. But its leader, the Maharaja, was Hindu.
Kashmir presented a dilemma. The ruler was Hindu. The majority was Muslim. It was contiguous to both India and Pakistan geographically.
The Maharaja was told to decide which country Kashmir should join. And for reasons that are still debated today, he ended up going with India. And that triggered the first major war between India and Pakistan.
When the Maharaja acceded to India, open warfare broke out in the fair land of Kashmir.
Pakistan felt that because of this large Muslim majority, this entire princely state should rightfully come to Pakistan.
For more than a year, the bitter fighting continued. Finally, in early 1949, a ceasefire between Pakistan and India was effected through the United Nations.
And the ceasefire line became a de facto border, what's now called the line of control. It's more than 700 kilometers long.
And so that's basically what divides the side of Kashmir that India controls from the side of Kashmir that Pakistan controls.
The UN also called for a vote, or plebiscite, to ask the people of Kashmir whether they wanted to be part of India or Pakistan. But that vote never happened, and Kashmir's status is still unresolved.
And it's really that denial of that plebiscite that remains the root of this issue.
India believes that Kashmiris should think of themselves as Indians. Pakistan believes that Kashmiris are actually Pakistanis. So both countries have made possession of the disputed territory a cornerstone of their respective national identities as sovereign states.
Now, India and Pakistan ended up fighting two more wars over Kashmir, in 1965 and in 1999. But it's not just those wars. Over the decades, heavy fighting has repeatedly broken out across the line of control. And whenever things get tense between India and Pakistan, it usually plays out in Kashmir.
This has made the life of border communities, people on both sides, living on or close to the LOC, absolutely miserable whenever there's been a flare-up.
There is always like a fragile thread in the landscape of Kashmir that things can turn.
ज़हनी तौर पर वहाँ के लोग बहुत ज़्यादा मुतासर होते हैं क्योंकि कोई अंदाज़ा नहीं होता है कि किस टाइम बमबारी हो जाए, still know it.
In May 2025, we saw how quickly things can escalate in Kashmir.
India launching a military operation targeting what it calls terrorist infrastructure inside Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
India and Pakistan have been exchanging a barrage of fire across the line of control.
All that was triggered by an attack in India-administered Kashmir. 26 mainly Indian tourists were shot and killed. India said the gunmen were linked to Pakistan. Pakistan denied having anything to do with the attack. Now, these kinds of claims and counterclaims come up again and again. And that gets us into another layer of the Kashmir conflict, the tensions within India-administered Kashmir itself. Now, there are three regions: Ladakh, the Jammu region, and the Kashmir Valley. And that's where there's been the most tension, and where many Kashmiris have been pushing back against Indian control for decades. They say their rights have been trampled on by the Indian government.
For various reasons, the population of the Kashmir Valley has been chronically disaffected with Indian authority since the 1950s.
Over the years, there have been big popular uprisings calling for more autonomy or independence. In the late 1980s, various armed groups emerged.
We want complete independence both from India and Pakistan.
But different groups had different aims. It wasn't just about independence. Some wanted to join Pakistan. It was a pretty violent period. There were bombings and attacks, often targeting Indian security forces. Now here's where Pakistan comes back in, because India has always accused its neighbor of supporting these groups and stoking violence in Kashmir, what India refers to as Pakistan-sponsored cross-border terrorism. Now, officially, Pakistan denies backing any of these groups, but many experts believe there has been some level of involvement.
Pakistani governments have generally claimed that they extend only moral and diplomatic and political support to the Kashmiri struggle for self-determination, but that has always been disingenuous. The Pakistanis have a long record of supporting insurgency in Indian-administered Kashmir by providing weapons, training, and funds.
So Pakistan has militarily helped the freedom struggle in Kashmir. But to kind of paint this narrative where it's these Pakistan-sponsored groups and Kashmiris don't have any agency, I think is problematic.
Okay, so there's this long history of discontent and violence in India-administered Kashmir. Then, in 2019, the Indian government tightened its control. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his ruling party, the BJP, changed Kashmir's status in the Indian constitution. They revoked Article 370. This had given Kashmir a special semi-autonomous status, allowing it to have its own constitution, flag, and government.
The argument made was that by the BJP, Article 370, instead of guaranteeing autonomy and providing special rights, what was actually happening is that it was giving psychologically a fillip for secessionism and for militant insurgencies. That argument has been on the charter of the BJP ever since its conception, ever since its beginnings as a party.
साथियों, मुझे पूरा विश्वास है इस नई व्यवस्था के तहत हम सब मिलकर आतंकवाद, अलगाववाद से जम्मू कश्मीर को मुक्त कराएंगे.
Modi's government also split the region into two new administrative areas known as Union Territories. That, plus scrapping Article 370, basically gave the government much more direct control over the region. It was super controversial. They also enforced a major security crackdown. Thousands of extra troops were deployed, there were mass arrests and curfews. Politicians were jailed, and communications were cut off for months.
We woke up to no internet, no mobile network, no cable connection. A mini nation, like entire state, was locked behind communication blockout.
Indian-administered Kashmir has always been run as something of a police state since the 1950s. But the repression after the revocation of Article 370 and the carve up into 2 union territories surpassed all previous levels of repression.
6 years on, many Kashmiris say repression is still going on, which helps to explain the fear factor we mentioned earlier.
All the acts are monitored. I don't think there is free will, not even an idea of it. The government is silencing the people.
There have also been legal changes that have got some Kashmiris worried. For example, it's now easier for any Indian citizen to buy land, get government jobs, or vote in Kashmir. Some people think it's all part of a deliberate strategy by Modi's Hindu nationalist government to change the makeup of Kashmir by bringing in more Hindus.
There's a real fear in Kashmir now of demographic engineering, of land being taken away, and so kind of the implementation of a very explicit settler colonial project, similar to what we've seen Israel doing in Palestine.
Others say that's just not happening.
I live in Srinagar in Kashmir for part of the year, and there's no evidence anecdotally or otherwise, no hard evidence to suggest that there's been a demographic shift.
All this brings us to a third layer in the Kashmir conflict, the different opinions that Kashmiris have about everything that's going on. If we go back to the map, it can help to explain what the main viewpoints are on both sides of the line of control. So, broadly, on the Pakistani side, you've got a segment of people who are pro-Pakistan and another that supports independence from both Pakistan and India. On the Indian side, there's a pro-independence segment that's mainly concentrated in the Kashmir Valley. There's a pro-India segment, which is mostly in the Jammu region. And across both those areas, there are people who are pro-Pakistan. Now that's a pretty simplified way of looking at it, but the thing is, there's no recent, reliable data that shows us how many Kashmiris actually hold those different views. There is a poll from 2010, and one of its main takeaways was that no single proposition for the future of Kashmir would get majority support across the whole region. So the question of what Kashmiris want is hard to answer. But the point that many make is that they've never properly been asked. Instead, they found themselves caught in a geopolitical tug of war, shaped by decades of unresolved history and largely shut out of conversations about their own future.
The future we want is one where the people of Jammu and Kashmir are given the right to make their own political decisions. We're not treated as a piece of land that is to be claimed or controlled. We're seen as people with their own voice, their own identity, and their own aspirations.
The problem is that we have never been asked anything. We are not someone who have a platform and we can come together and actually decide for our land what we want.
We explain all sorts of geopolitical stories on Start Here. Watch this recent episode about the Arctic becoming a new battleground for world powers. And follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where I also post short explainers and updates about what we're working on.